Spotify has created a situation where the artist does need Spotify. Record companies love it. You know why? There's no return reserves. There's no Harry Fox. No packaging. No nothing. It's just free money.
It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis.
Joe Bonamassa has been on a roll. In 2024, he's already released 2 albums, one with Black Country Communion and a solo album. His most recent solo album, Live at the Hollywood Bowl with Orchestra, was his record 28th #1 album on the Billboard Blues chart. We spoke with Joe about this great accomplishment, as well as his recent experience opening up for the Rolling Stones. We also got Joe's thoughts on playing Eric Clapton's Crossroads in Los Angeles. We also get Joe's thoughts on the impact and legacy of John Mayall, when Black Country Communion is finally going to go on tour, plus how Joe helped Rick Beato and his family reunite with a 50-year missing bass, and Joe shares his reaction to a recent controversial tweet from Spotify's CEO and gives his advice for musicians on how to navigate in today's streaming world. We hope you enjoy our conversation with Joe Bonamassa. All right, so Joe, you recently scored your 28th #1 Billboard Blues album with Live at the Hollywood Bowl, so congratulations on that. What made you decide you wanted to do an album with a 40-piece orchestra?
Well, we had been planning this since 2018. We were originally going to do the orchestra show at Red Rocks with the Colorado Symphony. And Kevin Shirley and Jeff Bova and Trevor Rabin, David Campbell had started working on charts for an orchestra show at the Red Rocks in 2020. Obviously, what was happening in 2020, nothing. So that show kind of went on the wayside, and by last year, we decided to do it at the Hollywood Bowl. And so we had the charts, then we had 3 years goes by and we had more like more songs to do and another record. And we ended up doing it, with the LA Phil and David Campbell, and it was really great, and it was so much fun that we're actually going to revisit it next year at North Sea Jazz Festival in Holland. We're going to do something with the National Dutch Orchestra. So now we have charts, and now we have a framework to do this. And I think the craziest thing when the record came out was we were #1 on the blues charts, but we had the #1 classical album in the country, which I'm like, just another set of purists to hate me. The blues purists hate me. Now the classical purists hate me. I'm sowing divisions wherever I go, and I was really shocked and in a good way. And everybody who's seen the Hollywood Bowl has commented how good it came out, and it was one shot. There was no retakes, not with the union.
Yeah, that's tough with all of those moving pieces, but you guys definitely put it together pretty well. 28
also,
#1.
You have 90 minutes, and then the cello players put their bows down and walk off. And there's a union representative with a watch going, bows down, out. It's the reason why nobody records, very few people record orchestra in the city of Los Angeles. That's why you see a lot of the orchestra dates, especially in the studios, coming to here in Nashville, or it's cheaper to record at Abbey Road in London and stay at a 5-star hotel than it is to deal with that. It's until the union in LA figures out that their tactics are costing their own musicians work, it's going to be the same thing. But no regrets. And the LA Phil is wonderful, and David Campbell is wonderful. It's just these crazy rules and fines, and we're not trying to exploit for our own purposes any oboe player. I assure you.
28 #1 albums. I mean, that's a lot. do you pay attention to that number? And, when it's all said and done and you look back on your career, do you have a goal in mind for how many number one albums you'd like to have?
28's the record, by the way. It never really came to my attention until Billboard called us one day and said, you've uh, set the record. And this was maybe 9 or 10 albums ago. And I'm like, what do you mean I set the record? And there's like, you have the most number one blues albums in the history of the Billboard chart blues category. And I'm like, all right, there's a better way to word it. Anyway, you know what I mean? In the history of the blues chart on Billboard. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way, right? And then it's like, no, here's BB had 18, Stevie had 15, and everybody else. And I think we had 19. And then I was like, it's such a weird stat. But it's a testament to my fans who have followed me all these years. And and it's a testament to, just the hard work and perseverance and the fact that we do put out a lot of records. The fact that I have 28 number one records is a lot. The fact that I have 28 records is a lot.
Right.
It's I think all in, if you add up my entire catalog, that's across the board. That's solo and with the rock band and the jazz group and Beth Hart. I think it's 52 or 53 albums I have, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yep, for sure. Another gig that you played within the past year in Los Angeles was Eric Clapton's Crossroads. And I believe this was the first time that you had ever played at Crypto.com Arena, formerly Staples Center. What did it mean to you to have that opportunity, especially being a guy who's lived in Los Angeles for many years?
First of all, it is the Staples Center. Okay. When Crypto.com, goes the same way that Sam Bankman-Fried's company or whatever his name was, it'll be the Staples Center again, or it'll be somebody else, be the Disney Center for whatever. The Crossroads thing for me, I owe Eric Clapton a huge debt of gratitude, and will always owe him for what he did for me in 2009, coming out on stage at the Albert Hall, and it was literally my bar mitzvah. And it was something that put me on the map, and it set into motion this trajectory in my career that to be honest with you, it wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't for Eric. So anytime, any place, anywhere. The fact it was in LA and it was 25 minutes from where I live, I'm not arguing. It was a good show. I was, mindful of the time, because I think when we went on, we were the show was running about an hour and 15 minutes late. I was like,
yeah, that was a marathon.
I didn't want to add to the problem, but I also didn't want to drag my whole band and crew, there and play 5 minutes. So we did okay, and John McLaughlin came out and played with us, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, you and Eric Gales, that was awesome.
And it was great, and I sang with a couple of people and ran into a couple of friends and said hello to Eric and got in my car. I had preferred parking, which is, to a Los Angeles person, I know this sounds really, really trite. To a Los Angeles person, when you say, hey, can you come to the Staples Center? Hey, you want to go to the Greek Theater or the Hollywood Bowl? It's like, I ain't coming unless I have parking. That's a big deal in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I got a good parking pass. Thank you, Eric. Or
awesome.
Whoever. I got the preferred parking. I was in and out in 2 minutes.
Perfect. So another gig that you got to play recently was opening for the Rolling Stones at Lumen Field in Seattle. Yeah. NFL Stadium, awesome opportunity. What was that experience like for you? And how does that rank with the biggest crowds you've ever played in front of?
Well, we've done some festivals over in Europe that were probably 60, 70,000 people, I think it was 45,000 tickets sold. I think we probably had 35 to 40 in the stadium when we played. Just to be asked to do that was crazy. I mean, when we were in Paris, getting ready to go to our gig in Paris, this was in April. Like, it wasn't that long before we did it. My manager comes down. He's like, "Hey, listen, I have like, would you have any interest in opening for the Rolling Stones in Seattle?" And I'm like, I go, "Did they run out of people, or they realize this is me? You know, because that those calls don't happen for me. You know, no, they want you to open." I'm like, "Sure, let's do it, of course." And we got there. We brought our gear, and Dave Natal, who's their sound man, gave my guy a really an open lane, gave him the full PA, and we sounded really good. We got 2 standing ovations, and we killed it. And that's how I rate the show. We killed it. It was the kind of music that those fans. I got 10,000 new Instagram followers in 45 minutes of that show.
That's
We
amazing.
killed it. And then Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, Steve Jordan, Daryl Jones, Chuck Leavell, Bernard Fowler, and company come out, and they Keith goes into "Start Me Up," and with 2 chords. Remember now, we killed it, and within 2 chords, they killed us. And you don't realize how effing good those guys are until you see them live, and you go, the songs are insane, iconic, but they are good. They are better than good. They're the greatest rock and roll band ever. And it's Mick is a freak of nature. He's 80 years old, running around like he's probably running 5 miles up there, 10 miles. Keith sounds the same. Ronnie sounds the same. It's just an amazing thing. And I was just honored to be in their orbit for an afternoon. And that was such a great show.
Yeah. A few days before us recording this interview, we lost John Mayall.
Yeah.
What has he meant to you, and what do you feel his legacy will be?
Okay. Lot to unpack there. John was a friend of mine. I played on a couple of his albums, his later albums. It was always so nice. I'd run into him in Europe at festivals, and he actually opened up a Black Country Communion show once in 2011. John Mayall on the Blues Break. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Why is he opening? Right. And it was an outdoor thing in Italy, and Rocky Ethis was playing. But every time I would see John, this is going back 25 years, always smiling, always excited about the gig, the action, the whole thing. He was just an excitable guy, right? To the point where you would forget what those records that he made and the impact of those records. Okay. Every suburban white kid who was remotely interested in blues guitar had to go through the Beano album. That was just standard issue. It was Stevie Ray Vaughan, the Beano album, whatever. And Hendrix, the impact of his music and the impact of the blues never, you could never imagine what the music would sound like if it wasn't for John Mayall and Alexis Corner and Big Bill Brunsey. And those guys were the founding fathers of this movement that turned into the Led Zeppelins, the Rory Gallaghers, the Gary Moores, the everything that's on your shirt. Blues rock started with those guys in London. And I've been screaming to anyone who listened over at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, going, you need to get John Mayall in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before he dies. And of course, as if on cue, he goes in. The ceremony's in September, and he passes away 2 days ago. I'm glad that he knew he was going in, because he was a Hall of Famer. And I'm just mad that he never, and sad that he never got to get the statue, because I know 2 people, one being in my band, that have a statue from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it means something to them. It's a validation of a career and you know, like when their parents would say, you're going into this rock and roll business, you're going to just not going to amount to anything, you're going to be a loser. Well, I'm in the Hall of Fame. It means something. So I implore anybody at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to do the right thing by these artists who are now in their late 70s and 80s, and in John's case, 90s. Let's get them in. Fuck the TV show. Okay? Do whatever you need to do for the TV show, but do a ceremony beforehand or the day before. Like, the best carpentry Oscar goes to, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, it means something to that carpenter who built the set. It means something to these guys to go into the Hall of Fame. And John Mayall is the perfect example of waiting too long to acknowledge the impact of what he did. And, he had good taste in guitar players, but I interviewed him kind of on a Zoom call like this. And I said, man, like, what was your biggest problem back in those days? He goes, keeping a guitar player. The Stones took Mick, Fleetwood Mac was Peter Green. I couldn't keep him, but Peter was Eric's sub when he didn't want to be. It's like, those are Cadillac problems. But every suburban white kid who plays a Les Paul guitar owes a debt of gratitude to John Mayall. I'll take that to my grave.
No doubt. Recently, Rick Beato released a video on his YouTube channel, and he mentioned how his uncle had a bass and it went missing.
Yeah.
And like 50 years later, you discovered it. Can you share your side of the story and how it ended up you getting it back to Rick Beato?
Well, I get a call from Rick. He's my friend. I've been on his program. We've known each other for several years now. I'd say 5 years. I lose track of the time. I get a call from Rick. Hey, man, what's going on? I'm in New York. And he goes, hey, he goes, I know you love stories behind the guitars. And I got a great story for you. So I did this reverb video about my crazy house in LA. And I was talking about this 52P bass that I bought from the House of Guitars. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, just after the pandemic. Bruce was nice enough to sell it to me. And that damn thing sat up in that glass case for 50 years. And that was always the unobtainable instruments. But they're letting stuff go, little drips and drabs. And I was doing this thing about like how Leo Fender got got it right the first time. And I'm just doing and I mentioned I bought it at the House of Guitars. Well, Rick's friend, who's another YouTuber from Rochester, sees the video and heard the story about Rick's uncle's bass gone missing in the 70s. So Rick is telling me all this about it was my uncle's bass. It went missing. It was at the House of Guitars, and I think you have it, and blah blah blah. So he sends me the picture of Rick, his uncle playing it, and you can identify the bass by the wear marks on the thumb rest. And I go, look, give me a second. I look at the thumb rest, and I have that bionic vision for this junk. Anyway, and I go, I got your uncle's bass, and I said, listen, man, I don't know how I feel about it, because I'm like, do you want it back? And initially he said, no, I don't collect stuff like that, but I just wanted to tell you this story. And I was like, well, if you ever change your mind, you know where it is. It's not going anywhere. And, it should go home eventually. It's a family heirloom, I kept saying. Well, he texted me the next morning, and I think he talked to his family, and he's like, yeah, we're going to take the bass. And I sold it to him for exactly what I paid for it, because that's the right thing to do. And it goes, it has to go home. All this stuff that I'm surrounded by every day will eventually find a new owner. And when I hear stuff like that, where a family heirloom is reunited with the family, regardless if it's world famous Rick Beato or not, that's the collector in me going, no, this has to go back here. And it's the right, it belongs, when things find the right home, they let you know. And I'm just really thrilled for Rick that and his family that they got this family heirloom back. And Rick records at his house. It's a good bass, and I didn't know if it worked or not when I sent it to him, because I hadn't plugged it in. But when he plugged it in the video, like, thank God, man, I should have plugged that thing in. I didn't know if it worked, but thank God.
Good
So
thing it did.
sometimes they sit a long time. When they sit a long time, they don't work. I'm like, I don't know. I just bought it and put it on the stand, but don't tell him that.
All right. Joe, obviously you're known for your guitar collection and your vintage gear. Do you envision someday starting up a guitar museum that would be open to the public?
No. Um, I'll tell you why, because a friend of mine did it, and unless you're selling beer and hot dogs and doing other stuff, when you put it all in one room, it gets overwhelming. And I also, this is how I live. This is where a lot of people don't delineate. Is where people go, wow, you live in you literally, it's like, night at the museum. It's like, well, this is every day. I live in the museum, and I have several of them. But it's what I like to surround myself with. It's a world, and that's so I don't want to pull all this stuff out, put it in a museum, and then go to party, like like what we're gonna do, like go to like who sells furniture, call Amazon up and get some Thomas Kincaid artwork for the fucking walls. No, it's like no, we're not doing that. So it's here. It's gonna go I'm almost 50 years old. I'm even now I'm starting to think it's like, well, there has to be a transition, and I can't keep the stuff forever. But it's a passion, and I love it, and I've always loved it, and since I've been a kid, and everything that I ever wanted as a kid, guitar and amp wise, I own, and multiples of each. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah. Recently, Spotify CEO Daniel Ek made some comments on X. He got some musicians riled up saying, quote, "Today, with the cost of creating content being close to zero, people can share an incredible amount of content," sort of referring to music. I was wondering if you had any reaction to that.
Well, that's him buttering his own bread, right? Give me more content. And, here's the thing. And I don't want to get into this because I can do 30 minutes on this. Spotify has created a situation where the artist does need Spotify, because back in the day when all these streaming platforms were set up, nobody representing artists, aka the unions or the whatever, the record companies love it. You know why? There's no return reserves, there's no Harry Fox, no packaging, no nothing. It's just free money and micro pennies. Okay, record companies love it if you own your own masters. It's a great way to. It's basically, it's like Bitcoin mining. You're harvesting fractional pennies every second of every day. Artists never stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we're not doing this," because the minute you realize how powerful Spotify is when all these soapbox artists get on there, and for one reason or the next, going, "I'm pulling all my music off of Spotify," or "I'm pulling all my music off of blah blah blah," and then the companies that own their masters, or gave them a 9-figure check before the decimal point for their work, their life's work, and they took the money and they cashed a check, then they go, no, it doesn't work that way. We need Spotify. And unfortunately, artists who don't own their masters are at a disadvantage. So I can only encourage them to own as much of your content as you possibly can. And they're like, "Well, Joe, I'm just one man. What do I have?" No, this is what you can do. You can re-record your stuff. If you don't own all your masters, I encourage you to re-record, go back retroactively and re-record, and then re-release on and do a deluxe version, because you're not going to see any of those fractional pennies unless you do that. And the thing with Spotify is once you give away free samples, it's very hard to charge. So if Starbucks gave away coffee 29 days out of a 30-day month and then said, but on the 30th day, we have to charge you, how many customers would they have on the 30th day? None.
0.
And once you give away free samples and make it so where it's like it's a subscription base and everything's you remember when Apple Music used to cost 99 cents for a song? Now that's not, now it's a subscription base. Once you've just zeroed it out and made creativity free, it's hard to charge for that.
Black Country Communion recently put out its 5th album. I know you're about to head on tour for your solo career.
Yeah.
Where do things stand as far as a tour for Black Country Communion?
Next June and July. We're planning, we got shows in Europe, June and July. And
so that's going to be like a full show or a full tour all throughout June and July?
Yeah, we're just kind of ironing out how many weeks we're going to do. Right now it's looking like between 2 and 3 weeks, maybe 20 shows. So
awesome. Great.
But yeah, we're doing it. It's just hard to get everybody together. Jason's super busy and I'm busy and Derek's busy, Glenn's busy. I think Glenn just got back from Europe. So it's hard to get the stars aligned, literally. But it looks like June and July.
Awesome. I think a lot of people are going to be happy about that. So definitely good news there. Joe, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel the current state is of blues rock at the moment?
I think it's pretty good, right? Not dead yet. The thing is, I hear from touring artists is that, and like anything else, okay, it's the cost of doing business is up. It's like, gasoline, hotels, lodging, meals, but all of the trappings of the road that you have to pay for off the top line are more expensive now. And so the margins are less, and you just, it's, I read an article, somebody said, I'm not a musician, I'm a t-shirt salesman. And I was like, that's a pretty cynical way to look at it. But, the ancillary revenue on the road is more critical now than it's ever been. So as the fans, I always tell people that when you they sit there and they sign CDs, it's like chances are that CD will never see the inside of a CD player. It's they're autograph, widgets, and it's something you autograph and they say, hey, I met so-and-so. Yeah. And here I got a signed CD. Great. Put it hanging on the wall. Because most of the music they're consuming of yours is on Spotify. But I mean, there's a lot of great new talent in the blues rock world. There's a lot of people out there, fighting the good fight. And that's always encouraging. A fresh new generation comes in. And then every 10 years there's somebody that just comes in and nails it. It's like Kingfish was the last one, Gary. I had my moment in 2009, 10, Kenny Wayne Shepherd and, Gales and all that. Everybody, there's every 10 years, there's a Gary Clark Jr. that comes along and goes, oh, the new savior of the blues. And it's like, well, it never really went anywhere, but I keep saying that. It's fine. Now I sound old and cynical.
Well, it does seem like a lot of the artists, though, now are getting, bigger platforms. I mean, you just opened for the Rolling Stones. Samantha Fish opened for the Rolling Stones. Slash is doing his Serpent Festival. He's pushing a lot of upcoming acts. You've got your Keeping the Blues Alive cruise. I know you've got your 10th one coming up. That's an absolutely stacked lineup. Clapton brought a lot of the new up-and-comers to Crossroads this past year. So
you're answering your own question. It's good. The state of the music is good. And people are getting more, people are getting more, awareness and bigger, like I said, bigger platforms and stages and stuff like that. And Rome's not built in a day, and it's, just because I opened for the Rolling Stones doesn't mean it's like, it's like, okay, well, fast track me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's like, no, you gotta.
It's a process and you got to keep at it.
It's a process. it's not contingent on a record. It's a body of work, and it's your live show. And it's that if you can marry the two together, going, you have great records and it doesn't even need records anymore. If you could just keep churning out cool singles, keep feeding the machine and just keeping the momentum going, yeah, you're going to do very well. You know, it's you can't but like, if I'm not where I want to be in 5 years, I'm quitting. No, because maybe it happens in the 6th year. It's like, you never know. You know, I'm so happy that Joanne is doing as well. Joanne Shaw Taylor, she's starting to sell, you know, really nice theaters, and she's doing well. But she's been in the game 20 years. Same thing with Samantha Fish. That's a 20-year overnight success. You know, and it's like, you know, it's like if both Joanne and Sam said, by the time I'm 30, I'm out of this shitty fucking business. They wouldn't be who they are, you know, and that's the thing. You know, if I quit when I was 30, my big moment was 4 days before my 32nd birthday. It's just, you never know, but you got to stay in it long enough to see it through.
Totally. Joe, we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you, I know you're going to be working on a new album soon. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, I've been working on a new album for the last 2 years. I don't know when it's going to be out. I gotta get more focused. I've been doing a lot of other things. You know, we did Black Country Communion. We've done Blues Deluxe Volume 2. I've been, you know, Hollywood Bowl, and I'll leave you with this. There is no need for me to feel any urgency about releasing another recording. There's no urgency. So it'll be out when I think it's good and done, you know. But, you know, we just had a collaboration with Train, Pat Moynihan, and that you know, so we've been releasing some singles, and I got to record a Christmas song tomorrow, you know, Ho 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 in July, and that's always fun. And you know, so it's a 10-year deal for me. I keep saying this, and everybody thinks I'm full of shit. This is the beginning of the last 10 years for me. I'm like, so I have to, like, I need to really plan the next 10 years. So maybe 3-4 albums, maybe tops, and you know, tour, and then, you know, reassess when I'm about 55, 56, 57, and then going, can I still do it on a high level? Do I still enjoy it? And do I actually want to just retire and go see the world, which is what you don't do when you tour the world. You don't see the world. My friend taught me about that, who just recently wrapped up a 50+ year run with a very successful band. He's out there seeing the world, he's not touring the world. So anyway, that's kind of where the state of the union here.